A powerful storm system will be coming to the United States over the next few days, and this is going to cause some problems, including the return of severe weather. This includes damaging winds, large hail, and the threat of tornadoes. Additionally, a big flooding threat could evolve this week across parts of the central and southern plains. And lastly, the end of this month looks wild, as we could see some very cold air in addition to some snowfall. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days. And we'll begin with what's happening across the country today. And we right now have a big storm system across the Northeast. This brought some snowfall to upstate New York and also northern New England over the last 24 hours. And even as far south as Philadelphia, we actually saw some snow flurries last night. This storm is now bringing tons of cold air over the next 24 hours to the Northeast. So get those winter jackets ready. Temperatures are forecasted to fall by as much as 20 degrees below average for the next 24 to 48 hours. Now back along the West Coast and in the Rockies, we currently have a little storm system that is spinning over the Four Corner states. This actually could bring some isolated storm activity, maybe even some severe weather tonight into tomorrow. This will be mainly impacting those across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. I do think that there's at least a very low-end conditional tornado threat tomorrow back over in southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and Kentucky. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. But another thing that this storm system may bring is a little bit of snowfall to parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. We'll talk more about that as well in just a moment. And then back along the West Coast, lots of moisture continuing to bring rainfall, but really the big story this week will be a storm system that'll be coming out of the Pacific over the next few days, and that is what's going to bring the risk of more significant and perhaps more organized severe weather, and then on top of that, a risk of flooding. Now, over the next few days, we are going to see multiple big storm systems impacting the United States, so we're going to check out our mid-level flow on our jet stream. This controls our weather patterns that are happening across the United States. Right now, we have a very strong jet stream across the Northeast. This is bringing very cold air out of Canada right now. And then we have a very weak low pressure system that is right now moving over the Rocky Mountains. And what this is going to do into Tuesday is bring the potential for some strong to maybe isolated severe storms late tonight in parts of Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois. But tomorrow we may see an organized risk of severe weather near a warm frontal boundary. And when that happens, we can sometimes get elevated wind shear. And when that occurs, we can sometimes see severe weather that's organized. So Tuesday afternoon and evening, I'd be keeping a close eye on southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and western Kentucky for an isolated and very conditional risk of severe weather. But more notably is what's happening Wednesday and Thursday. Big storm is going to be forming over the desert Southwest and California. This will bring more rainfall to areas like California that really do not need the rainfall right now. And then by late Wednesday and Thursday, the storm is going to move over the very far southern part of Arizona and New Mexico. And to be quite honest with you, this is an interesting storm track because it's not going directly over the Rockies. And when we have a storm system go right over the Rocky Mountains, that can actually help to basically create turbulent mixing, which means colder air aloft and warmer air near the surface. That's not necessarily going to be as relevant for this upcoming storm system, which does mean our risk of a widespread severe weather outbreak is a lot less likely, which is very good news, but this could still produce the threat of severe weather Wednesday and Thursday, and maybe even into early Friday, predominantly though in the southern plains on Thursday, with damaging winds, some hail, and perhaps a couple of tornadoes being a possibility. I think Wednesday night and Thursday will be the main time frames to watch for, and then Friday the storm system will become a little bit weaker as it moves across Missouri. We may see a little bit of isolated severe weather continue into the mid-Mississippi Valley on Friday, as record-breaking high temperatures are also going to accompany this storm system. And then by Saturday into Sunday, it gets absorbed by our polar jet stream. And then by the time we go into the weekend and early next week, we could have yet again another big storm go right across the desert Southwest, maybe bringing even more severe weather and maybe even a little bit of snowfall to some areas. And then eventually by the very end of November, it looks like it's going to get very crazy very quickly. We could have a big dip in our polar jet stream right in time for Thanksgiving or just after that, which means we could have some very cold and polar air coming right out of Canada. Now let's put this all into more simplistic terms with our future radar. This is what it looks like for tonight. A weak storm system will make its way across the northern and central plains, bringing some strong storms. These will be mostly elevated, so small hail, maybe an isolated quarter-sized hailstone or two will be possible this evening and into the overnight hours across Missouri and Illinois. Tomorrow morning, the northern side of that low pressure system will bring some very light snowfall to southern Minnesota and central southern Wisconsin. I don't expect much more in the way than maybe 2 inches of snowfall for most of those areas. And then Tuesday afternoon, we'll have to keep an eye on a potential for isolated severe weather during the afternoon near our warm front in southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and western Kentucky. By the time we go into Wednesday, that storm system will weaken as it approaches the east coast, and then a new storm system will be making its way across the desert southwest. On Wednesday, I would anticipate at least a few severe storms to be in play across Texas and Oklahoma. Damaging winds, a little bit of hail, and maybe an isolated tornado will be a possibility on Wednesday. And then Thursday still appears to be the main risk of severe weather. It really looks pretty messy as of right now. I'm not fully sold on this being some sort of outbreak. However, I do think there will at least be a scattered threat of damaging winds, perhaps some hail to the size of golf balls, and maybe a couple of tornadoes, and they could be really anywhere in Oklahoma or Texas with a very strong southwesterly wind shear in place, which is going to help to kind of elevate things here. And then as we go into late Thursday night and into early Friday, this storm system will continue to move across the Ozarks and eventually going towards the mid-Mississippi Valley. And then Friday evening, we'll be watching that storm system making its way across the Ohio Valley and the Dixie Alley, perhaps a low-end threat of severe weather for the mid-Mississippi Valley and parts of Kentucky and Tennessee. So something to watch for on Friday, but anything that happens should remain isolated. And then by the weekend, we'll be watching for a storm system across the desert southwest yet again, and that could bring some more storm activity to Oklahoma, Texas, and even the lower Mississippi Valley as we go into late Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. However, that is still well over 7 days from now, so we don't exactly know what's going to happen there, but it does look like the weather will stay active across the Gulf Coast region. And then by the very end of November, things could get pretty crazy. Again, I'm not sure that we're going to see a winter storm like this, but I do think Arctic air is definitely in play for much of the country. And one of the things I've been alluding to in this forecast is the potential for severe weather tomorrow in the Ohio Valley. The Storm Prediction Center has no risk of severe weather at the time I'm recording this forecast for either tomorrow or Wednesday, but I do think there is a potential here for an isolated discrete supercell or two to develop just after about 4 or 5 o'clock. It's going to depend on how fast this convection clears out during the morning hours, but if it clears out fast enough, we could get a couple storms near a warm frontal boundary during the afternoon hours, and if that were to happen, we could see a storm or two produce the threat of large hail, even some damaging winds. I wouldn't even rule out a tornado threat in this area because there will be plenty of wind shear and a very small axis here back over in southern Illinois and southwestern Indiana. A pretty short window though. I'm thinking maybe around 3 to 7 o'clock is really going to be the window of opportunity for a potential risk of severe weather. So something to definitely keep an eye on. I'm not very sold though that this will definitely happen. I would say it's about a 40% chance we actually see storms fire here, but if they do, things could get pretty nasty. And another big change that is coming to our weather will be the temperatures. We're gonna have to wait a little bit of time though until that happens, because over the next week, we're basically forecasting above average temperatures for almost the entire country. In fact, record-breaking high temperatures are likely across the southern plains and the southeast on Wednesday and Thursday. And then by the time we go into the weekend and early next week, things are just gonna remain the same until we start to see polar air come out of Canada, which appears likely right around Thanksgiving. We don't exactly know though when this is going to arrive. It could arrive a day or two before Thanksgiving. It could arrive a day after Thanksgiving. It makes a big difference because if you have Thanksgiving plans, we could either be talking about some record-breaking heat like the GFS shows along the East Coast, or we could be talking about well below average temperatures that could even lead to some record-breaking low temperatures in some areas. So that is very uncertain, but it looks like we're at least going to get one, if not two, Arctic air blasts essentially during the very later half here of November into very early December. So get ready for winter because we are definitely going to be experiencing that during the first couple of weeks of December. And this storm system will not just bring the risk of severe weather. In fact, we do have a risk of flooding as we go into the middle and end of this week. It doesn't look super significant. However, I do think there will at least be some isolated locations on Wednesday and Thursday that pick up as much as 4 to 8 inches of rainfall. I think that highest amount will probably be somewhere in southern Oklahoma or far northern North Texas. Otherwise, we're talking about a widespread 1 to 3 inches of rain across the Central Plains, back into the Mississippi Valley, and even into the Ohio Valley, including Kentucky and Tennessee. So get ready for plenty of rain over the next few days. For some of you, this will be very beneficial. For others, you might not need the rain because of all the rain that we've also seen over the last several months. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We'll likely have another video tomorrow if there are any big updates to our upcoming storm system here. I do think at least there is a chance of a live stream either tomorrow or Thursday, so make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. As of now, no risk of severe weather through Wednesday from the Storm Prediction Center. That definitely could change here over the next 24 hours, so stay tuned to our social media pages. If there are any changes, we'll let you know over there on Twitter and Facebook at MaxVelocityWX, and we'll see you all again in the next video.